it's just it's a really sophisticated setup. It's a baker's rack from Costco with 3 sets of fluorescent lights on them. We used to use the shop lights, the cheap old T12s. I read somewhere that they weren't, well, I was getting really spindly plants, and I thought, well, it's just too warm in the house. But somebody talked me into buying what they call a high bay fixture, which is just a new T5 fixture, which is the little teeny tiny skinny bulbs. They have a highly polished reflector on them, and it's dramatic, the difference. I can grow plants that look like they were grown at the nursery. You get these stocky,
Where do you
short.
get these lights?
Well, I used to get them from Brown's, but Brown's Electric. They were made for warehouses. But now you can buy them at the hydroponics store on Mountain View and the one in Boniface. But the one in Mountain View, I don't know if they haven't figured out their pricing yet, but it was really cheap. It was $139 for a 4-tube fixture with the bulbs and the cord. I was paying $139 for the ones from Brown's, and I still had to wire a cord into them and buy the bulbs.
So where in Mountain View is this? The hydroponics store?
Yeah, it's the new hydroponics store. It's called Brandy's Hydroponics in Mountain View Drive. And you're not going to be her customer because you don't have a baseball cap on sideways and you're not driving a kick and ride. But she'll still sell you stuff. They have a good selection. They don't stock them. You have to order them, but it's a really good price.
All right, so like where in Mountain View?
It used to be it's just east of AIH, on the same side of the street.
So they don't produce as much heat and they give you more light.
They're a lot more efficient, so they give you more light for the heat.
They're part of the new intelligent step that, the warehouses use it because it cuts their electricity consumption dramatically.
Yeah.
So they're like the 3rd generation of a fluorescent bulb.
Oh.
They're just a
So,
little teeny.
lot less, like like a quarter of what the regular
Use
ones do.
with the oxygen.
Oh.
Super lights, they're just
But they,
regular.
instead of costing $10, they cost $100 and something.
Well, no, the other ones don't cost $10, but yeah, they're a lot more money. But for me, they're cheap because my plants all survive.
Yeah.
And they use less electricity.
And they
really
use
do
less
use a
electricity.
lot less.
The bulbs are 32 watt. The T12s are 56 watt.
Yeah.
So on
Oh,
4
there you
bulbs, that's a pretty dramatic. But beyond that, they're putting out almost twice the lumens that the T12s are for 56 watts. So it's
And not as
4
much
times
heat.
as efficient. Yeah.
Not as much heat?
Right, not as much heat.
And what is it called? The
It's a
T5?
T5
T5?
is the bulb. And it's just the small ones, but yeah, like I say, check out the catalogs because and that Brandy's place, it took me, I just bought a third set this year and it took her 10 days, I think I had it.
That's good.
The T12s are the regular
The traditional
fluorescent.
fluorescents.
And then there's T8s, which are a little bit skinnier and more efficient. And then the T5s are even skinnier and even more efficient.
You find sunny protected locations, that actually applies to this time of year. The other great thing about pots is they're mobile. So, for instance, my lettuce, I grow in these trays, right? In the summertime, or in the springtime, I put them in the sun. In the summertime, it's too hot. They bolt, so I carry them over and set them in the shade. It's great. So you can move your plants to whatever they like. Same thing, I start my pot cabbages, my late season cabbages. I started them up in the deck, but that deck, it's amazing how hot it is. The reason that's how we discovered it. We used to have a old futon there. We thought, that'd be a great place to lounge in the sun. You can't lounge in the sun there. It's way too hot. You're there for like 2 minutes. You're like, oh, this is terrible. So that's how we decided to put pots there. But yeah, so find a protected sunny location. The difference in temperature on my deck, on the protected side and on the unprotected side is about 15 degrees difference. That's not when it's sunny. That's just regular. The difference between the exposed side of the yard that has a lot of wind and the unexposed side. Just trapping, just by not moving the air, basically. floating row cover. I read about this in Elliot Coleman's first book that I bought from him, which is this one, The Four-Season Harvest.
Right?
This changed my life. And again, it's one of those things you read and you're like, oh, yeah, that might work, I don't know. 8 degrees, you know, even if you think about it, if you can get 5 degrees difference, that means that you can put stuff out that isn't frost hardy down to 27 degrees. And it's still okay. If it is frost hardy, like brassicas, lettuce, any of the greens that you eat, that stuff, you can let it freeze. It'll take about a 10-degree freeze before it really shows any sign. If it's a young plant, it'll take more than that. So it's pretty amazing if you choose the right plants.
And
Yeah,
your row cover, it comes in different weights, which gives a different amount of frost protection.
that's true.
What do you have? I have the lightest, and I think mine was rated for 4 degrees. That's all I've ever.
Yeah, I think this is what they call it is 4 degrees, but according to
So
Elliot's
they
tests,
haven't measured it, so.
according to Elliot's tests and his measurements, it's more. I think they just didn't want to tell you more.
Branding.
But then what I do is, this is right now. But if we get a forecast, like 2 nights ago, we got a forecast that was going to be 9. It was like, oh, geez, I don't want to carry all those in. I had, they were small plants. I thought, what the heck?
Put another cover.
I put aside, I just have inexpensive clear poly. Actually, really inexpensive now because I found out Hardware Specialties where I buy my wood. They get a 40-foot flat every 2 weeks, covered with 2 sheets of 6 mil plastic, and they throw it away.
6
Oh,
mil.
man.
Yeah. So they get $140 worth of plastic that goes in the trash every other week or every week.
Dumpster diving.
Hardware Specialties.
Where's that?
Over on 50.
You sure you want to tell us?
No, I just can't. It's a really weird street.
International.
It's
where
I wouldn't tell him.
you know where Bailey's warehouse is?
Yeah, turn there.
It's that street. The street before Potter.
Okay.
Just north of Potter. There's Potter and this other street. It's that street.
Yeah, it's hardware special.
Hardware Specialties.
Why those dumpsters are
Floating row cover.
Actually, just call them up and ask them when you're gonna get your next flat. Can I have your plastic? Yeah, and that's what I'm thinking. I'm sure there's like I know the permaculture guild. We grow a lot of stuff where we take over people decide they want to get rid of their yard and grow more vegetables, and so we cover the yard with cardboard. It's the same thing. We all start calling people to find cardboard, and there's amazing people get huge amounts of cardboard that they have to deal with and throw away. They don't want to. So there's a lot of materials out there you can find if you want to spend the time, or if you're poor enough or cheap enough, like that. But the cover is, I mean, even in the summertime, like I say, the difference between my plants in the community garden and her plants in the community garden, which were in exactly the same place, was huge, and we didn't do anything differently other than the cover. So, and the other thing nice about this row cover stuff is it can get rained on. It doesn't. It lets water through. It doesn't get too hot. If it gets too hot, it just transpires because it's open pore.
I saw your, when you did the, there. I gotta talk, it's been a very long day. You talked about being able to directly plant the brassica seeds as soon as the snow is gone in the garden. I know this isn't a container, but I'm talking about my raised bed.
Yeah.
And then you cover it with, you said you cover it with plastic, or you cover it with the,
Usually what I do is
floating?
I cover my beds. I actually just did this. I just stretched the plastic over my beds, snow in place, because I didn't feel like shoveling all the snow, but I went ahead and stretched the plastic over. It'll trap some heat. It'll melt it faster. And I leave that for usually about 2 weeks, which is usually about now that it's open, or that they become open. So we'll be a little later this year because there's so much snow.
right.
But I do that. It germinates all of my initial weed seeds. I pull the plastic off. I hoe all those weeds down. I plant. But I do have some beds that I pre-plant brassicas in the fall. The trade-off is that I have to weed them by hand, but plus is my brassicas, my mustard and stuff gets started really early. So yeah, we'll be harvesting. The mustard is amazing. You can plant that stuff in the fall, and it pretty much comes up through the snow. As soon as the snow is melted, there'll be plants down there that are.
So to back up a little bit on hers, so you're doing in the spring, you're letting the snow, you have it covered with plastic, 2 weeks warms up, you direct plant, and then what do you cover it? I'm assuming you do.
I throw the floating row cover over.
Just
Oh, the
floating row?
floating,
That's it?
not the plastic.
Yeah, unless it's gonna be really cold,
Plastic's for
but
heat.
the plants will germinate when they're ready, and brassicas are incredibly hardy. They'll take freezing solid.
What?
Broccoli, cauliflower,
Yeah.
cabbage, brassica plants,
Brussels sprouts.
mustard plants, when they're small, beets too, beets are really hardy for early season spinach, a lot of that stuff. And that's again, Elliott Coleman. In fact,
There's Elliot.
choose cold area plants. This is February in Maine.
Yeah.
The ripples here on the side of his greenhouse
Snow.
is because there's snow piled against there.
That looks like us.
There's no heat in this greenhouse other than the sun. These plants are, they look pretty happy to me.
Is that yours?
No.
Elliott
No,
Coleman's.
that's Elliott Coleman's in Maine. He's the guy who wrote 3 of these books here.
Yeah, but he's at 50.
Our
What's
hoop
his?
houses, our big high tunnels like that and stuff with it, we have much more snow this year, so our snow level's about like that.
Uh-huh.
My ground is already thawed. If I were home, I would be planting. I'm up to already just shy of 40 degrees with no heat added.
Right.
Yeah, so when you do that, it makes a huge,
Well, and the deck garden is similar concept because those pots sat out all winter. They were frozen solid. I planted them 2 weeks ago. Those pots were thawed from sitting there in the deck. That was the difference. And it was, it was still, 2 weeks ago, it was still getting well below freezing at night, but those pots were thawed and ready to go.
I think we've lost 2 feet of snow
Oh, yeah,
in the last week.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's been really warm.
Easily.
Maybe a day. It's
Easily.
just disappearing.
So as soon as the fall is gone,
oh, it's because that thing said.
Listen, I'm not yet. Mustard plant.
Eat it.
Put them on
Oh, yeah.
hamburgers.
Mustard greens,
Mustard greens.
I'm a big fan of
Ranch, and we had it in there.
and they're
Yeah, oh,
so
wild
good
mustard,
for you.
yeah.
Is that mustard?
Yeah, same stuff. Yeah, you
It's
can,
really hard.
yeah, there's lots, you can blanch them, and if it's the older plants, they get, the leaves get tough. You have to blanch them and eat them as like spinach. Or, collard greens, collard is really a mustard.
Pork fat.
But when they're young, they're actually a tasty salad, they're a spicy salad. In fact, the European braising mix, they call it, which is that spicy salad, the small baby salad, that's all the colors, that's all mustard greens. So, and then it makes great pesto, much better than we throw a little bit of basil in it just to mellow it out because it's a little spicy, but if you like spicy, mustard green pesto is.
Awesome,
With pistachios.
Yeah, so start indoors, find a sunny protected location, cover. Choose the right plants, and then succession plant is the other trick that we use. We have a starter nursery going all the time. We'll start harvesting some of our stuff when it's only small because we're hungry. And but as soon as we harvest stuff, something else has already started and goes right in behind it. And that way you keep stuff rolling along. There's other strategies that we use for increasing yield. Yes, ma'am.
When do you put your last broccoli?
Our last broccoli,
Yeah.
When you plant it?
Yeah.
September.
Really?
Some years we get heads, some years we don't, but personally, I don't really care because my favorite part of the broccoli plant is the stem.
There you go.
That's one of the other things that's been a big change that we've learned, off topic a little bit, but the vegetables that are presented to you in the grocery store, we've all become accustomed to thinking that carrots need to be this big and all these things. when they're little are so much better. You know, so we grow lots of small stuff and eat it when it's small because it's tastier. And it's not as impressive, so we grow some stuff, you know, all season long so we can say, look what we grew. But it's not as good as the small stuff.
Yeah.
And the same thing like broccoli, we eat the heads, which are lovely. They've got a great flavor and they've got that crunchy texture. But if you take the broccoli stem, if it's not really old and woody, but if it's a reasonable stem, I don't even peel it anymore. I used to peel it, but now I just quarter it, blanch it, or steam it, and it's great. Sweet, crunchy, wonderful stuff.
I get raw.
Yeah.
I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
I'm sorry, go ahead. I have a question on carrots.
Uh-huh.
Like, we got somebody gave me some carrot, a bag of them, and they still look pretty good, but they're in the refrigerator for 3 months.
Mm-hmm.
They're not growing little hairs out or anything. How long can carrots still be healthy in the refrigerator? Edible?
Depends on the condition of your refrigerator. I mean, any carrots you're buying right now have been in the refrigerator a lot longer than 3 months.
That's for sure.
Yeah, that's for sure.
They were all harvested in August and September,
You just don't know that.
so yeah.
Yeah, they're all old.
If you kept, most things like that, you kept them a long time and they're not rotten. They're
Yeah,
not
they're
gummy.
still perfect.
They work real nice in stews.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they start to lose after when they start to get that fuzziness, they can lose their sweetness. If you have
Okay,
Alaskan
good.
carrots, they'll start to taste like American carrots.
But they're still.
But they're still fine.
usable
They're
in
still absolutely
stews.
food,
And
yeah.
they still have their nourishment. you
Yeah,
know?
yeah, absolutely.
Potatoes, the same thing.
Yes, it is the same thing.
So the things that we do, we plant intensively, and what that means is, Elliot said this great thing at the conference. He says, have you ever noticed that people who write garden books have read the last garden book?
Right.
And what he was talking about was plant spacing. He says pretty much all the traditional plant spacings are based on you need 18 inches to get a horse between them to pull your plow. It's like, and I always wondered that. Why would you need? How can you plant something 2 inches this way and then tell me you need 18 inches that way? Does the plant know that it only can grow roots in one direction? No, it's not. That's what that spacing is. So like carrots, they need a 2-inch spacing. You can plant a lot of carrots in not very much space if you're planting them every 2 inches. In containers, we grow broccoli in the middle and we plant carrots around the outside
Right.
in our 12-inch pots. Because the other thing is they feed differently. The broccoli has a fairly shallow root ball, well contained. Carrots are feeding all along, so they work well together.
How shallow, I saw a handout from the extension office, but I'm wondering, I tried it, but some of the things didn't work well and some did, and I don't know why exactly, but how shallow can you like to go those big pots, huh? The deep ones?
Well, they're not real deep.
They hold more water, that's.
Right, that's a lot of the reason I go for as big a pot as I can because I'm
Yeah.
less likely to water stress it. And I keep thinking one of these days I'm going to build, a system where it all self-irrigates and all that stuff. But I haven't. It just hasn't happened. So, but one thing that we do, we put all of our pots in water, in flats. And so when I'm watering, I actually fill the flats with water and bottom water.
Soak it out.
So the only time I actually water into the pot is when I'm feeding. So I'm pouring the liquid food in the top, but when we water from the bottom. And then we just wait for the flat to be dry. The day after the flat's dry, that's the day to water again. That way I know that the pot's dried out enough that it's still got air in it, but I haven't let it go to water stress.
That's just a 2-inch flat?
This is a 2-inch flat, yeah. So we have 2 of those 9-inch pots in each flat, so. Yes, ma'am.
I heard that they have carrots now that are 14% protein,
Wow.
but I don't know what kind.
But they bite.
I don't know that I actually, see, I'm kind of weird. I buy my seeds and my food based on how they taste. So I don't care how they're gonna ship, I don't care how much protein, I buy them because I think they taste good, so. Although, some of them I don't, I bought some of those little round carrots. I'll never do that again.
Yeah, they're not
They're a
little
waste of
round.
space.
They're a terrible waste of space for me, yeah, exactly. It's like, wait, no carrot is one bite.
Always one buying it, I plant mine just,
And besides it,
where they plant, and then instead of planting them 2 inches apart, I'm always out there picking the little ones.
Well, that's what we do.
Yeah.
Our final spacing is 2 inches. There are definitely times when, because carrot seeds are small, so it's hard to get them big, so.
We never get to very big carrots because they're so sweet when they're little.
Yeah.
They're just,
And we do eat all of our thinnies too, so the next 2 months is great. We have all kinds of interesting stir fries for the next couple months.
Do you eat the tops?
When they're little, sure. It's a little bitter, but I like the contrast, so. Co-plant. Everybody know what co-planting is?
Yes.
broccoli.
Yeah, that was an example. There are plants that have beneficial combinations, and I can never remember them. This book right here, it's been around for about 30 years, and it's got a lot of information about co-planting. I use it pretty extensively as a reference, but it's great because you've got, say, a broccoli plant needs 12 inches. You've got these 12-inch spaced pots. You've got all this room in between and they grow in, if you think of it, the roots are a circle, right? So circles leave these little triangles in between. So I put onions or beets in those intermediate spots, and I get twice the production out of that same amount of bed space. Same thing in the pots. I mean, you just think about what you can do, how.
Ran down, put in parsley.
Succession plant we already talked about, where you follow stuff up right away. And so this is it. This is our Shangri-La. In 2010, we harvested 267 pounds of food from our south-facing deck.
Before Memorial Day. Wow.
Do you freeze all your vegetables?
Yes, ma'am.
He's just got heavy things, that's all.
Do you have a cold cellar?
We don't. I haven't figured out how to build one. I have a super insulated house, and so I don't have any cold spaces in my house. And I don't really want to make one. I spend a lot of time designing a house that wouldn't have any cold spaces, so yeah, we don't. And I don't really have a spot in the yard big enough to dig one, so that's been an issue. Right now, we store extra fresh vegetables in my in-laws' garage because they keep it at under 50 degrees. That's the best we've found so far. That's a big struggle. So we freeze, we blanch and freeze a lot of food.
Use an old, like an old freezer or refrigerator as a cold storage, just set it at room temperature.
Yeah, you could.
And use it outside as well as.
Yeah, and just use it, you have to be able to make heat. Keep it from getting too cold. But yeah, you could do that, but my wife doesn't like to pay the electric bill as it is, so.
Draw a line
Old
somewhere.
refrigerators use a lot of them.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So in 2011, last year, we actually grew 1,697 pounds of food, and our apple trees did produce. So we were shooting for 2,000. We didn't quite make it. About a third of that was in containers, and we put up about half of that. We spent out 7 hours a week for 7 months. So if you figure $3.50 a pound, I made about $29 an hour growing vegetables and eating good food.
That's cool.
Thank you.
Wow.